welcome to America's Greatest Influences. As most of you may know, only weeks ago marked the 40th anniversary of the Beatles' arrival to the USA. In honor of their great accomplishments and impact on American rock and roll, we decided to dedicate this program to their success and brilliance. We hope you enjoy this program.
She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, 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 yeah.
It all began in a small town in England known as Liverpool. In this city, four men were born who would soon change America's music forever. There, George Harrison, John Winston Lennon, James Paul McCartney, and Richard Starkey, also known as Ringo Starr, were all born within 3 years of each other. However, there was some skepticism and uncertainty about their value and talent. An example of this is, quote, "I give them a year," said by Ed Sullivan's musical director. Despite this, these Fab Four, as they were nicknamed, would later prosper phenomenally as musicians in the USA.
The main founder of the Beatles was the talented John Lennon. Before, he formed the band The Quarrymen. This band consisted of John Lennon, his friends, and later Paul and George. Later the band transformed into Johnny and the Moondogs, and then into the Silver Beatles, in honor of the late Buddy Holly and his band, The Crickets. Finally, in the year of 1960, the Silver Beatles developed into simply The Beatles. The Beatles consisted of John, Paul, George, and Pete Best, who was later replaced by Ringo Starr due to excessive popularity and jealousy among the group.
We begin our journey through the Beatles' career in the years of 1962 and 1963.
In the course of these years, the Beatles transformed from Cavern Club regulars to Beatlemania superstars. This all happened thanks to a Liverpool record dealer named Brian Epstein. He listened to these amazing lads on his lunch break at the Cavern Club and absolutely loved their presence on the stage. Quote, "They had magic," said by Brian Epstein. Brian later asked the Beatles if he could have the honor to become their manager. The Beatles agreed to this proposition. Little did they know this would give them the break they had been searching for.
We continue on to 1964.
2 years had passed, and it was almost time for their first debut in America. Their albums, Please Please Me and With the Beatles, had been released, and America was waiting for their arrival. They were scheduled to appear on The Ed Sullivan Show on February 9, 1964. Thanks to Brian, they had become smooth, stylish gentlemen with mop-style haircuts, suits, and ties. They had also stopped smoking, drinking, and chewing gum while performing. The performance was a hit and officially started Beatlemania. An astounding 73 million people tuned in, and 6,000 people saw it live, even though the capacity was only a mere 700.
Everyone went crazy for their artful combination of black rhythm and blues from the 1950s and the fresh excitement of Elvis. Their songs also proclaimed belief in the American dream. The Beatles were the perfect antidote for Americans who needed a lift after Kennedy's assassination, the frustration of rights for blacks, and the Vietnam War. The Beatles were unstoppable, and they had only just begun.
In this year, they released their first two American albums. They were A Hard Day's Night and Beatles for Sale. They also came out with their amazing behind-the-scenes movie titled A Hard Day's Night. This movie displayed the frenzy of the fans and the true impact of Beatlemania.
However, all this newfound fame led to the unfortunate true rock star lifestyle. The crazy late-night parties led to many girls and the misuse of drugs. Quote from Ringo, "In New York, we met Bob Dylan. That was the first time that I really smoked marijuana, and I laughed and I..."
In 1964, they released more albums. They were Help, Rubber Soul, and Revolver. Also, they become increasingly popular with
media doing many interviews and concerts. In addition to this success, the Beatles were each presented with an award in 1965. This prestigious award was called the MBE Award, standing for Member of the Order of the British Empire. Thus it was given to them by the Queen of England. While all the Beatles were flattered and honored, John Lennon had a different opinion. He gave the award back to the Queen, stating, "Your Majesty, I am returning this MBE in protest against Britain's involvement in the Nigeria Biafra thing, against our support of Vietnam, and against cold turkey slipping down the charts. With love, John Lennon."
In 1966, controversy was aroused once again by another one of John Lennon's remarks. In an interview, he stated, "We are more popular than Jesus now." After this interview was released, many fans changed their opinions of the Beatles. Protests and death threats towards John and the Beatles caused more security. The Beatles ultimately regained their prestigious title. Later on, in 1966, the Beatles had become overwhelmed with crazed fans and exhaustion. Finished touring, having their last performance at Candlestick Park, California.
Now move on to the years 1967 and 1968.
The years of 1967 and 1968 were successful and thankfully less hectic. The Beatles released 4 more albums. They were Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, Yellow Submarine, and The Beatles' The Album. Although all these albums were successful, a few were more prominent than others.
One of these was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. This was said to be one of the most influential and frequently discussed albums of the century because of its happy-go-lucky nature and strong message that urges Americans to strive and work for new concepts and ideas. Another one of these albums was called Magical Mystery Tour. This was the soundtrack to their film called Magical Mystery Tour. The film is a documentary about the Beatles, which is similar to A Hard Day's Night. One last album that was prominent was called The Yellow Submarine. The Yellow Submarine movie was animated and was about how
How the Beatles conquered the Blue Meanies,
the power of love and music. This movie really brought out the true personality of the Beatles.
These years, like all of the other years, had their share of rumors and controversy. One of the most memorable rumors was about the song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Many people believe that this LSD. Is this rumor true? Used today.
1969 and 1970.
These 2 years were the prelude of they had come out with 2 more albums and like the others were successful immediately. These albums were Abbey Road and Let It Be. In 1969, they performed one of their last concerts on the rooftop of the Apple Records studio. For this concert, the Beatles tried out some of their new music from their album Let It Be.
However, during the performance, the police impeded them and demanded they stop due to a bank's complaint.
Here, most would say, was the true beginning of the end. This was especially noticed when John Lennon he wanted to disband, but Paul kept this quiet.
1970 was the most bittersweet year of them all. It was their last. And this year, they came out with yet another documentary titled Let It Be. It was about the making, recording, and performing of their album, Let It Be. This year also brought the announcement from Paul and the rest of the band, saying that the Beatles were no more. This statement, although heartbreaking, was for the best, for the Beatles had long before engraved themselves into America's hearts and spirits.
Now, in the year 2004,
Many things have changed for the Beatles. Unfortunately, both John and George passed away.
they died in the years of 1980 and 2001. John died
Unexpectedly from being shot
by a crazed fan while being asked for an autograph. George Hand died from an exhausting battle with her. Despite these, the Beatles will always remain known and respected. We will always remember when in 1960 how they new musical concepts and styles was remarkable, and the exchange of these thoughts was even more outstanding. Because of their talent, love, humor, lightheartedness, they in America to become the strong, brilliant country always meant to be.
Thank you for watching America's Greatest Influences. We hope you had on American rock and roll. Be sure to tune in next time. Goodbye and good night.